After I graduated from high school, I've been working at a small local factory manufacturing molds for nearly 40 years since I was 18. Officially, we had a 2-day off a week, but once or twice a month, I had to work on weekends too. The factory was so busy and thriving. Even though it was a small-town factory, it was responsible for supporting America's technological prowess. I was proud of that. That day was supposed to be my day off, a Saturday. "Alex, were you working today?" said Lisa, the familiar owner of the small diner, looking at me in my work clothes. "Yeah, the boss asked me to come in for some urgent work." There's been a small diner near the station not far from the factory for many years. I knew about it, but I started going to the place just about 6 months ago. My coworker introduced me to it. The taste of the food was just right for me, and the price was reasonable, so I liked it. What I liked even more was Lisa, who runs the place by herself. She's friendly and attentive, yet firmly scolds any customers who get drunk or act poorly. Her straight-faced look with fair cheeks matched well with her apron. Shortly after I started going to the place, I asked her, "Hey, how old are you?" 18. I couldn't help but ask back, "Really?" Lisa laughed. "Of course not." I laughed too, at my own foolishness. Since then, she started calling me by Alex. "This chicken soup is tasty," I blurted out, holding a quick glass of beer. "Alex, if it's chicken, you'll eat it." "Easy customer," she said. "It's my favorite, can't help it. But this is delicious. Which supermarket did you buy it from?" "How rude. I made it myself." "I thought you might come by today, Alex." I said, "Is that so?" and took another spoonful of the chicken soup. Lisa watched me intently. "Could you pack this chicken soup if there's any left? I'll pay you for it." "Sure, but was it that good?" I lost my wife 15 years ago. Back then, I could cook for my 10-year-old daughter, making lunchboxes and preparing breakfast and dinner. But I never made something like chicken soup. For some reason, I wanted to serve this chicken soup to the guy my daughter would bring over tomorrow. Tomorrow, my daughter is bringing her boyfriend to our house. I always told Harriet that if she found someone she liked, she should introduce him to me first. I persuaded her by saying, "I'll do the same. Tomorrow, it'll become a reality. The first meeting with my daughter's boyfriend. What do you think about serving this chicken soup to her boyfriend?" Lisa, delighted, wrapped up a large quantity of chicken soup, enough for 10 servings, and handed it to me. When Harriet brought her boyfriend over, he was seated in the living room, rigid and formal. I was cooking in the kitchen for him. "It's ready. Let's eat." Harriet brought her nervous boyfriend to the dinner table. "I'm sorry, it's only home cooking." I told Harriet we could have gotten pizzas. "It's my dad's cooking. I wanted you to try it. It's my father's taste." With the same tense look, the boyfriend bowed deeply again. "I'm Robert. I'm a medical intern at the same hospital as Harriet." I thought he was a very serious guy. "Let's skip the formalities," I said, opening a can of beer with a pop, and poured some for him. Then I offered him the food I had prepared. He said, "Thank you," and began to eat. Harriet and I watched Robert's reaction. "How is it? Is it too salty?" Harriet asked, a bit nervously. "Yeah, it's salty, strong." I didn't feel bad at all hearing his honest opinion. As I scratched my head, apologizing, Robert said, "In my family, my mom insists on using less salt for health reasons." I thought, no wonder, coming from a family of doctors. But, even though it's rude to my mom, I like this better. "It's delicious," Robert said, and with a satisfied look, he heartily ate the omelet I'd cooked. I thought he was a good, honest young man. Harriet said, "Here's more soup," and offered Robert more chicken soup. Then she explained my love for chicken. I was sipping my beer, watching the two of them, smiling. I haven't really eaten chicken soup before, but it's delicious. Is it hard to make? I can't make it. I got it because I like the taste. Robert tried the pickles and said, "Delicious, delicious." These aren't homemade either. I bought them at the supermarket. I laughed out loud. Harriet laughed too. Robert looked down, a bit embarrassed. A few days later, I went to Lisa's diner. Seeing my face, Lisa immediately asked for my impressions of my first meeting with Harriet's boyfriend. Half of me is happy, half of me is sad. It's just an ordinary feeling of a father who is everywhere. If it's ordinary, then thank God. That's what makes everyone happy after all. Lisa, who usually does not drink during business hours, said, "Let me treat you to a drink." And she drank my reserved bottle of vodka. There were several other customers, but Lisa was mostly ignoring them. She wanted to hear my story. First, I reported that Lisa's chicken soup was well received. Then, as Lisa asked, I told her how Harriet and Robert met at the same workplace, a university hospital. Harriet is a hospital clerk. Robert is a resident in the general surgery department, and he grew up in a family of doctors with a history of high education. His father is said to be the head of the hospital department and a professor. His father is an important person. Hearing Lisa's words, I remembered saying something similar to Robert. I told Harriet how strange his reaction was at the time. He gets defensive all of a sudden. It's nice to be called great by others, but his father thinks he's great himself. He thinks he's in some kind of privileged class. He gets defensive, saying he hates that. Well, even though I haven't met him, I like him already. Raising my glass filled with vodka, I thought to myself that I've got Lisa's approval. Then Lisa quickly raised her own glass and we toasted. The next weekend, from the morning, Harriet was feeling tense. She wore a brand new suit and was preparing to go out. Now, it was Harriet's turn to greet Robert's parents. If the two continue dating smoothly and even get married, then it would be time for me and their parents to greet each other. I vaguely imagined that scene. Then, Harriet's cell phone ringtone sounded. What? Cancelled? Harriet's face paled instantly as she took the call. The caller was Robert, informing her that their meeting with his parents for that day had been called off. Not long after, Robert rushed to our house to explain the situation. He had asked his parents a few days ago to stay home in the afternoon as he had someone he wanted them to meet. He kept quiet about the details. I thought my father would immediately oppose my relationship with Harriet if I told him. So, I thought I'd let them meet Harriet in person first. I thought they would like her once they met her. His father, the head of the hospital department who also handles personnel matters, seems to have misunderstood that Robert wanted to hire a friend or junior from medical school. Since then, there had been no chance for Robert to meet his father because Robert was on duty or his father was away for a conference until today. On the other hand, his mother seemed to have sensed that the person Robert wanted them to meet was his girlfriend, and she told her husband about it the night before. This morning, I was asked by my father, "Your mother says this, but is it true?" He reluctantly confessed everything. Then he was interrogated by his father about what was she doing. When he revealed that she was a clerk at the hospital, his father snorted. Then he said, "You don't need to bring every girl you date home. Just the ones you want to marry. So that's why I'm considering marriage with Harriet," said Robert, clenching his teeth in frustration and firmly placing his hand over Harriet's as she listened next to him. I became unbearably restless. Without thinking about the consequences, I visited the house where Robert lived with his parents. I thought to myself, this is what a quiet residential neighborhood is like. Among all the houses, his family's mansion stood out. "I'm Harriet's father, who was supposed to visit today. I've come because I'd like to talk to you." When I announced myself over the intercom, the gate opened and I was let in, but only as far as the front door. Robert's father looked me over from head to toe without even trying to hide his displeasure. He asked about my job in a rude manner. I answered that I worked in a factory that manufactures molds. A mere clerk tries to get her hands on my son, as if she's hitting the jackpot. "So it's the parents' doing," he said, looking around me suspiciously. And then he asked, "Where's the mother?" I answered that my wife had died of illness 15 years ago, and we had been a father-child household since then. A father-child household, and the parents work in a factory. She doesn't even qualify to be with my son. This is absurd. Please leave. I felt so angry that I almost punched him. But if I did that, there would be no going back. I held back my anger and left the place. I sent Harriet a text saying, "It didn't work out," and then I visited Lisa's diner. "Oh, what's the matter, Alex? You look like you stepped in dog poop or something." I told her about my day while downing shots of vodka one after the other. "But, you know, It's not like we need the parents' permission to get married anymore, right? Even if her parents are against it. All I have to do is support her." Then Lisa said, "That's true, but wouldn't it be better to be blessed by everyone? But if that father is the one we have to deal with, I feel like I don't stand a chance. He's a big shot at that university hospital over in Boston, right? From a family of doctors. What's his name? Smith. The son's name is Robert, but I don't know the father's first name." When I said that, Lisa repeated the name Smith to herself and seemed to come up with an idea. "Hey, set up a meeting," Lisa said. "If they look down on us for being a father-child household, we can make it known that I'm about to remarry, and she would play the role of my new wife." I couldn't keep up with Lisa's sudden suggestion. "Alex, I won't treat you badly." "Okay, I understand. I'll do as you say." And so, through Robert, I somehow managed to arrange a second meeting with his father. Just as Lisa suggested, she accompanied me as my soon-to-be second wife to their house in Boston. Lisa and I were shown into the living room. Not a single cup of tea was offered, and the father made us wait for more than 10 minutes before showing his face. I took time out because my son insisted, but I want to make this brief. He declared it was a declaration of war. First, I explained that I was going to remarry, so it would no longer be just a father-son household. So what? That has nothing to do with us. With a hospital clerk who merely has a factory worker for a father, the family status is already different enough. He repeated the same words as before. "By the way, what do you do? Part-time in a factory or something?" Robert's father said in a condescending tone. "I run a diner," Lisa firmly replied. "A diner, you mean like a bar? Well, that's fitting for a factory worker." Robert's father spat out those words and started to leave the room. Lisa quietly called out to him, "Kevin, when did you become such a person?" Robert's father turned around, dumbfounded. "Why, you know my name. Don't you remember? I'm Lisa Garcia, your former tutor." Kevin's eyes widened, and he stared at Lisa without moving a muscle. Ignoring Kevin's stare, Lisa began to speak to me. She was an excellent student, graduated from high school, and went on to a top university's science department. She aimed to be a researcher but gave up when her parents went bankrupt due to a failed business. She could have stayed in college with a scholarship but chose not to. My tutoring student during my freshman year in college was Kevin, right? Kevin looked away. Lisa continued. She had not only helped him with his studies but also given him plenty of advice on love. High schooler Kevin fell in love with a poor girl from a family on welfare. When his parents found out, they vehemently opposed it, saying their statuses and backgrounds were different. "Kevin, back then, you were troubled, asking what is status, what is family background. You were frustrated and cried, remember? So what? I was just a naive child back then, that's all. I was just flustered, caught between the two. Well, but I must say this, just for old time's sake." Lisa said that Kevin's treatment towards Harriet and Robert was just a repetition of the treatment Kevin had received from his parents when he was in high school. Kevin didn't even flinch. "Excuse me, but did you have an arranged marriage with your wife, or was it a love match? Did you like her family background? Was her social status appropriate? If that's all, your wife must be very unfortunate." At Lisa's venomous words, Kevin, who had been standing defiantly, buckled at the knees. About 2 weeks later, the stern warning Lisa gave seemed to have had an excessive effect. Harriet was invited to greet Robert's parents. I went to report to Lisa right away. Lisa was pleased and said it was good news. But hey, something's bothering me. "Oh, what's that?" "Suppose things go smoothly from here on out and Harriet and Robert's marriage talk progresses. The parents will have a formal marriage greeting. Last time, I spoke rashly and presented Lisa as my future wife, but in reality, I'm still a widower. Then hurry up and remarry," Lisa said, looking unhappy, but then she blushed like a young girl, saying that she died and only acted as my future wife for the sake of Harriet and the others. Harriet and Robert's marriage was just a matter of time. I took them to Lisa's small restaurant. First, to keep my promise with my daughter to introduce her if I ever fell in love with someone. "Lisa, the owner, here's my favorite chicken soup." I introduced Lisa and my daughter. Does he only love chicken soup? What about Lisa? My daughter teased me. I said, "Don't tease your parents," as I looked at Lisa's face. Lisa smiled back, looking happy, and then she said to Harriet, "I'm not sure about that." Harriet pestered, "Dad, what about you?" I pretended not to hear and said to Lisa, "I have a favor to ask you." "Oh, what?" "More chicken soup." The time had come for me to fulfill my second purpose in visiting Lisa that day. "If Harriet and Robert are going to have a wedding, would you mind being there as the bride's mother?" As I was fumbling around in my inside coat pocket, Lisa said, "If you want to, just say it clearly. You want to register our marriage." I took out the marriage registration form I had prepared. How was it? Subscribing to the channel and IDL encourages further production. See you in the next video. "Isn't my pink thing adorable?" she said with complete confidence, but her clothes were tattered and torn, and I, a guy, didn't know where to look. That's because there were holes in places that should not be seen. But she doesn't care and cheerfully laughs in her tattered clothes. Why were her clothes in such a condition, you ask? My name is Aiden. I work at a company that sets up and plans for events and such. I'm mostly on temporary assignments, but if my company is requested, we'll also assist in attracting customers at corporate event booths. We help with everything related to events. That's our parent company's specialty. I work at a subsidiary, so I'm often on site. I go to various venues on weekends. That's why I tend to be kind to those handing out flyers. It may seem like an easy part-time job, but it can be surprisingly disheartening when refused. So even if I have to decline, I always try to do it with a gentle smile. But I just witnessed an unbelievable scene. Excuse me. There was a girl trying really hard to call people over. A college student, perhaps. I can tell she's working really hard, but she's being completely avoided by the crowd. Why? Her approach is not bad at all. A bright voice and smile can disarm people. But her clothes are just awful. I mean, they do catch the eye, but they're incredibly tattered. Her jeans are torn to shreds, and her t-shirt is ripped so much that you can see her skin everywhere. Or rather, it's more like it's full of holes. Why is this young girl dressed in such ragged clothes and trying to attract people? Didn't she have other clothes, or was she so hard up for money that she couldn't buy any? There's so much to question. Her jeans aren't showing her skin, but there's pink fabric visible from the rips. What is that outfit? With that appearance, her hard work in trying to attract people is wasted, and she looks nothing but suspicious. She's trying so hard, but she's being avoided so much that she's teary-eyed. And then, our eyes suddenly meet. I had a bad feeling, but... excuse me, you there? Just a moment, please help me, just a little bit. Apparently, having been rejected too many times, she seemed to have lost herself or become desperate, and she was crying out to me. As for me, I really wanted to run away, because I was being looked at strangely by those around me. But she was being avoided so much, and the way she looked at me with those puppy dog eyes, I felt a little sorry for her. So I thought I'd at least listen to what she had to say. A survey. Yes, I want to know what you think about the clothes I'm wearing. She was looking very dejected, a girl named Sarah Garcia, hanging her head. Apparently, she's attending a fashion school and was conducting a survey for a thesis on how much damage is acceptable on damaged jeans. But it seems she was about to lose heart, being avoided like that. I couldn't help but blurt out, "How are you going to handle it if your sample isn't staying still?" No, I mean, it's a survey about what people think of the person wearing the clothes, right? If you move, the survey results will change. Yes, the subject of a survey should not move. Suppose you are thought to look like you have holes in your clothes just by wearing them. But if you move in those clothes, the impression of the outfit might change. The image is entirely different when seen in motion compared to when stationary. Also, that outfit is too eccentric. You are ruining your chance to attract people. I've got experience in attracting people. Do you want me to show you a little? Really? Sarah's face brightened, and I felt a little motivated. I may not need to go that far, but it's just a kindness. I instructed her to stand with a smile. Then, I turned to the people who looked at her and said, "Hello. Excuse me for speaking to you out of the blue. Actually, she's researching the impression that clothes give. Could you spare a moment to help us out?" That's how I got them to answer the survey. I tried to be as friendly as possible, and when I asked for help for a college student, most people answered a simple survey. If they refused, I'd just say sorry and leave. If 70% of people stopped and 50% answered the survey, that's good enough. Attracting attention is surprisingly hard. You're amazing. I struggled for an hour and only managed to stop one person, but you're like a pro. Well, I am a pro after all. We were approaching the time for which she had permission, so we had to break up for the day. Near the end, Sarah bowed her head in thanks to me. "Thank you so much. All my college friends are busy with their thesis, so I have to do this alone. The data won't be enough with just today's survey results, so we'll do it again. I'll keep in mind what you taught me today." She said that cheerfully, but I could sense her anxiety about having to do it alone again. From now on, she'll look like a dejected puppy to me, and I feel somewhat heavy-hearted. Don't show me that look. I know all too well the difficulties of attracting attention. Would you like some help? Huh? Oh, I mean, if I'm not intruding. No way, thank you so much. She repeatedly bowed, her eyes sparkling. I exchanged numbers with her and parted ways. I had no ulterior motives, I just couldn't leave her alone. I did think I might be butting in too much, though. I didn't think at the time that this would later significantly change my life. Next weekday, she was conducting a survey activity between lectures. Even though the internet is widespread now and most of this type of thing is done online, she said, photos may not convey the color accurately. Apparently, she designed torn jeans, or rather, damaged jeans with patches of pink cloth over the rips. Isn't this pink cute? Jeans always look so casual, so I wanted to add something cute or something like that. Cute. Why not add some frills or something? Frills make it look too feminine, losing the casual feel, and adding too much frill will change the silhouette. So no, she said, but honestly, I don't understand what would change. I don't care about fashion, and frankly, her story is hard to understand because of many technical terms. But her passion for clothing is impressive. She's wearing what looks to an old guy like me like worn-out fashion, but young people call it cute and take pictures of her. I don't understand it at all. Is this the trend? But even if it's trendy, I couldn't help but, actually, I was quite concerned that the undergarments were so visible. I mean, the top was so see-through. Wouldn't anyone be concerned, I thought. But it turns out that this skin-showing fashion was also her idea. Haha, no, it's not like that. This is a variation of fake tights. Fake tights. What is that? I don't know the details, but apparently there are tights that women wear that look like thin stockings but are thicker. Especially when dressed in cute fashion. Wearing things like frilly skirts, wearing thick tights can make the balance look bad, it seems. This fabric you see through the tears is skin-colored, and it's quite warm. Oh, I see. So it wasn't actually your skin. I wondered why you weren't cold. Fashion is deep, I feel, but it's a world I don't understand. But it was fun to hear about fashion from Sarah. And she always talked happily, sparkling, and it was blinding. I received energy every time I saw her face and realized that I was filled with a feeling of happiness. A month later, she successfully collected the necessary data. Thank you so much. I want to do something to thank you, but no need for that. I just helped out of concern. No way. Well, could you at least tell me where you work? You're with an event company, right? Can we consult with you about university events? Of course. I said that and handed her my business card. It would be great if she talked about me to someone and they contacted me for assistance. Well, things don't always go smoothly, and I didn't do it because I wanted something in return. Rather, I did it because I wanted to see Sarah. So, well, to say that this is the end is honestly a bit lonely. But a working guy like me doesn't match a college student like Sarah, and surely someone younger with a better fashion sense and cooler will sweep her off her feet. Thinking that, we parted with smiles in the end. But then, a week later, I was utterly confused. Because when I arrived at work in the morning, suddenly, someone tapped me on the shoulder. Whoa, I was so startled that I jumped. Even more so when I turned around and saw that it was the boss. My heart almost leapt out of my mouth. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. No, it's my fault, sorry. A low-level employee like me never talks to the CEO. As I stood there looking tense, he called me into his office, saying, "Can I talk to you for a second? Did I do something wrong?" Entering the CEO's office with cold sweat all over my body, there was a man in a sharp suit. According to him, he's a human resources person from the headquarters. Why is someone from the headquarters? Cold sweat dripped down my back. Actually, he personally wants you to be assigned to the staff development division at headquarters. What? I was so surprised that I forgot I was in the CEO's office. CEO at the headquarters is like a god. He assigned me directly, and it must be some mistake. That's what I thought, but seeing that the headquarters guy had come all the way here, it doesn't seem to be a misunderstanding. In fact, we are currently developing someone at our headquarters who can take charge of event summarization. Aidan has abundant experience in events and is skilled at teaching, or so I've heard from Miss Garcia. Garcia, miss. I go into a major panic. Certainly, the surname of the CEO is Garcia. But Garcia isn't a rare surname. However, I've only met one woman named Garcia recently, and the fact that she said I'm good at teaching, could it be? By miss, do you mean Sarah Garcia? Yes, that's right. The HR person said that, smiling and explaining the situation. Apparently, she boasted to her father, who is the president of the headquarters, saying, "I met this amazing person who helped me with promoting." As I mentioned earlier, at the headquarters we're currently working on developing talent in event-related fields, so it seems they were thinking of headhunting that person. Sari ended up receiving the business card I handed over, and it turned out that the person was from one of our subsidiaries. Can I really handle something like this? It's not about whether you can handle it, but whether you want to. The HR person said that to me kindly, and I gratefully accepted the offer to work at the headquarters. That's because I was freshly reminded of the difficulty of teaching others from my interactions with Sarah, and I wanted to try something new, like educating someone. So, I was transferred to the headquarters. The headquarters has a large office building, and I was very nervous as I had rarely been there. Moreover, since I was introduced by the CEO's daughter, I had to go and greet him. As I headed to greet the CEO, with great trepidation, I heard, Aidan, there is Sarah here as well. Why is Sarah here? I was surprised in various ways, but it seems she helps out at the company during her college breaks. I want to hold a fashion event in the future, and I'm studying for that. I also have a part-time job in fashion, so it's quite tough, Sarah said, laughing. I haven't seen her in a while, but today she was wearing office clothes, with pink tights, and was quite flashy. Well, this company handles events, so hairstyles and nails are relatively free. Listening to our conversation, the CEO said, It seems my daughter has been taken care of, and as a father, I must thank you, but I won't be easy on you, so be prepared for that," putting me on notice. I hurriedly declared, "I will do my best." From there on, it was really tough. I struggled with unfamiliar tasks and made many mistakes. But the sense of accomplishment from completing the work was immense, and I became more and more absorbed in my work. However, it boosted my confidence, and I was able to act more boldly than before. Perhaps that's why I could muster the courage to take a step forward. The content was to invite Sarah to tea, an incredibly trivial matter. Is it okay? Yay. Sarah and I started having tea together frequently. Every time, I couldn't quite understand the mysterious fashion terms she told me, but being with her was fun. "I think I like Sarah." I unconsciously muttered such a thing. I wondered what I was doing myself, and honestly, I didn't realize what I had said for several seconds. But Sarah shyly smiled and said, "I like you too. I mean, I wouldn't go for tea every time if I didn't." We started dating. Although she's still a college student. So I intend to wait for her until she graduates. A few years later. Isn't the lighting here a bit too bright? Oh come on, it's just your professional bias. I was checking the wedding venue with Sarah. We're going to have a wedding next year. The fully matured Sarah was tired of me looking at the venue's lighting. We're the stars this time, so let's not talk about behind-the-scenes stuff. But Sarah, you're designing your own wedding dress, aren't you? You kept insisting. It's fine because it's something I'm going to wear. We laughed together, having this kind of back and forth. Sarah, who used to struggle with attracting customers in ragged clothes, has now become so beautiful that everyone turns to look at her. But still, her taste in clothing is as quirky as ever, and I still don't quite get it. Because I don't understand, I want to know more about Sarah, and I want Sarah to know more about me. That's what I've been thinking. Let's make our wedding the best it can be. What are you talking about? It's bound to be the greatest wedding of our lives. When I say that, Sarah responds with, "You're certainly right about that," and together we dream of a happy wedding that's not far in the future. I reconnected with a girl I had broken up with due to an incident back in school. But when I met her again, there was a scar on her face. Reconnecting with her, despite the scar, changed my life dramatically. I, Mason Moore, at the age of 28, was dumped by my fiancé 6 months ago. Even though we were in the midst of wedding preparations, she broke off our engagement. The reason was my fiancé Camilla's infidelity. But I don't know if you can call it infidelity since she said, "My love for him is real." During our talks, my fiancé was sobbing. "Do you really love me? I don't feel any love from you, Mason." I couldn't respond to Camilla, who said this. I thought I loved Camilla. But even when I found out about her infidelity, or when our engagement was broken off, I didn't cry or cling to her. I was never so shocked that I couldn't get food down my throat. I had decided to get married just because I thought it was about time, given my age. When Camilla broke up with me, all I said was a few short words. "I understand. Please take care of the compensation and the wedding cancellation fee." Upon hearing that, Camilla threw a glass of water at me and yelled, "You're the worst, trash, inhuman." But I was the one who got dumped, right? I almost said that, but I stopped myself as it would only add fuel to the fire. I've had other lovers besides that fiancé, but they were all pretty much the same. You don't really love me, do you? Do you even want to be in a relationship? I've been told things like that and we broke up. It's probably not the women's fault. I understand. The problem is with me. I fell in love in high school that I can't forget. Since then, I haven't found anyone I can love as much as I loved her in high school. The name of that high school girlfriend is Nora Anderson. Rather than being beautiful, she had big eyes and cute dimples when she smiled. She was cheerful and lively, always surrounded by friends. As for me, I was just an ordinary high school boy. I wasn't energetic enough to fool around, but I don't think I had a gloomy personality either. The reason I and Nora got close, who was the most popular girl in the class and too ordinary me, was a school event. We were assigned to the same task for the event. Through talking, I learned that Nora, like me, came from a single-parent household. I was in my rebellious phase back then, and I found my worrying mother annoying. I blamed her for our lack of money and our hard life, and we fought constantly. But Nora was different. She cared deeply for her mother and seemed to think that helping each other was natural, even if life was tough. Talking to Nora, who thought this way, made me feel childish and uncool for being rebellious. As I talked and spent time with Nora, my attitude towards my mother softened, and the tension between us disappeared. My resentment towards adults and my anger at being put in completely vanished, but being with Nora made me feel lighter. Nora and I were together from the end of our freshman year to our senior year of high school. I vaguely thought that we would always be together and maybe get married someday. But we broke up right before exams. If one of us had found someone else, or if we had started to dislike each other, I might have forgotten about my love for Nora quickly. But there was a reason Nora and I broke up. I couldn't accept that reason at all, so maybe that's why I can't forget about Nora, even 10 years later. After becoming a working adult, I heard from a high school friend that Nora had married an elite businessman and was a stay-at-home wife. I was relieved that she was happy, but I remember feeling empty because I was the only one still hung up on Nora. But now, at 28, I can't keep in touch with her or see her or talk to her. I thought that my unresolved feelings for her would continue to smolder in my arms. It was on an afternoon when the company was closed that things changed. I had spent the whole morning living a lazy life and finally got out of bed in the early afternoon and took my suit to the dry cleaners. But this was a weekday, and my usual dry cleaner was closed for the day. I had no particular preference for that store, so I visited a different dry cleaner than usual. As I stood in front of the register, I stopped in my tracks when I saw the clerk. Though she was wearing a mask, her eyes and features looked just like my high school sweetheart, Nora, whom I had parted ways with. But surely, after 10 years, I wouldn't expect to or inwardly bump into her. I assumed that I had only thought it was Nora because I had been reminiscing about our high school days and saw a woman who resembled her. But then I saw Nora's name clearly written on her name tag. Our eyes met, and I was sure. "Nora, is that you?" Nora nodded slightly in response to my question. Even with her mask on, I could see her eyes narrowing as she smiled. "Mason, long time no see." Her laughter and voice were unmistakably Nora's. My unforgettable first love. But Nora still had the same last name as in high school. And there was no ring on her left hand. But I knew that subtly asking "Did you get divorced?" would be incredibly rude. "Nora, what are you doing here?" "I work here, dry cleaning. Can I take it?" Realizing I had been staring at Nora, holding onto my suit, I finally handed it over. Nora took the suit and processed it. All the while, she carried the conversation for me, who couldn't say a word. "Nice suit. You must work for a great company. Wow, Mason, you've grown up." "Nah, I'm just a regular office worker." "You live around here?" "I'm about a 10-minute walk away. I live nearby too." Talking to Nora for the first time in 10 years was a bit nerve-wracking. Though her appearance was that of a mature and beautiful woman, her way of speaking was as bright and lively as during our student days. That's what I had loved about her. I wanted to ask her various things, but unfortunately, another customer arrived. I was just a customer at a dry cleaning place. I had to leave without getting in Nora's way. But noticing my downcast expression, Nora waved to me and said, "The reunion, you coming? I wasn't planning to go, but I heard our old teacher is retiring, so I think I should go since he helped me out so much." I immediately jumped at the opportunity. I had initially planned to skip the reunion, but my close friends had insisted that I come this time, so I reluctantly agreed. "I'm going to the reunion too." At the sound of my loud voice, Nora chuckled. "Then, let's talk more at that time." I nodded and quickly left the dry cleaner. I had heard that Nora hadn't attended the reunions before, and even this time, the organizer said she would be absent. I had given up on ever seeing her again, but I was overjoyed at the prospect of meeting and talking to her again. The day of the reunion arrived, and Nora came to the venue, still wearing a mask. I had thought she might have had a cold when I saw her at the dry cleaner, but I wondered why she was still wearing a mask this day. I was watching Nora from a distance, but she noticed me looking and waved at me. I thought this was my chance to talk to Nora and approached her, but there was someone who spoke to Nora before me. Natalie Jackson, wearing a flashy colored dress. Natalie had always dyed her hair and wore short skirts, even in her student days, and that vibe hadn't changed as an adult. Grinning, Natalie spoke to Nora in an exaggeratedly loud voice. "Nora, what's with that mask? Could that rumor actually be true?" I could hear the sarcasm in her voice. Ever since her school days, Natalie had a nasty habit of speaking ill of others or belittling the popular girl, Nora, in the class. But this time, I was really curious about the rumor Natalie was talking about. The classmates around us were whispering too. Looking at the crowd, Natalie said with satisfaction, "Did you all hear? Nora, she divorced her elite businessman husband. And here she was, enjoying the rich life with her wealthy husband, and now she's been dumped, right?" I was enraged by her spiteful tone. This was not something to talk about in front of everyone. I approached Natalie and spoke up. "Hey, stop it. Don't talk about someone's personal life in front of so many people." Natalie glared at me, seemingly annoyed that I had defended Nora. "What's the big deal? It's the truth. My boyfriend works at the same company as Nora's ex-husband. It seems to be the talk of the office. Apparently, Nora's ex-husband is lamenting. He feels like he paid for defective goods, having such a disappointing wife. If that was true, then her ex-husband was a real jerk too. No matter the reason for the divorce, spreading it around the company and among acquaintances is just wrong. Divorced and broke, living in poverty, what's with that mask? Can't afford makeup." Saying this, Natalie forcibly removed Nora's mask. "Stop it." Nora tried to turn away, but it was too late. Natalie had taken off her mask. But the next moment, silence enveloped the room. Even Natalie, the person who had taken off the mask, was at a loss for words, looking beneath Nora's mask. There was a large scar running from Nora's cheek to rear, a thin and long cut. Elongated scar like a cut. Whether it was due to time or makeup, the scar had blended in with her skin color. But it couldn't be completely hidden. "What's with that scar? It's disgusting." Hearing Natalie's murmur, the people around didn't openly raise their voices, but they were clearly disturbed. I couldn't bear it, so I grabbed Nora's hand and took her to the balcony. When we reached the empty balcony, Nora looked at me and said, "Thank you." Honestly, it was uncomfortable being in that room, but I guess everyone would be shocked to see such a scar. Nora said this as she put her mask back on. It didn't suit Nora to say such a thing in a self-deprecating way, and it made me a little sad. "Can I ask about that scar? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." Nora then told me about her married life. The man she married became abusive after they were wed. It was a daily occurrence for him to say things that would put Nora down, and it seems that she was constantly being told things that would negate her character. But Nora endured it for years. Having only a high school education and being a full-time housewife, she was worried about her financial independence. During this time, her mother's illness worsened and she collapsed. Though her mother was dependent on her boyfriend and seemed helpless when Nora was in high school, Nora's mother had turned her life around after becoming ill. She had worked hard, and together they supported each other. But even after being hospitalized, her condition didn't improve, and she passed away. "I'm sorry for all the trouble until now, but I want you to be happy." Those were Nora's mother's last words. Hearing them, Nora decided to divorce. Her mother's wish for her happiness gave her the push she needed. The scar was inflicted by her husband when she brought up the divorce. Thinking about all of Nora's hardships made me incredibly sad. But seeing me like that, Nora lightly tapped my back. "Don't look so down. I'm happy to be free now that I'm divorced. Just like Mom wanted, I'm looking for happiness. I don't have the courage yet, but I have a goal to someday take off this mask and walk proudly." Seeing that intense look in Nora's eyes, I remembered the time we parted ways in high school. Nora's mom was the type who depended on her boyfriend. Nora always came second to her, and she often ended up giving her money to men. But Nora managed her mother's earnings and even worked part-time jobs, trying hard to save up for college application fees. However, just before the exams, she found out that her mother had spent the money meant for the exams. At about the same time, her mother's illness was discovered, and Nora's mom was dumped by the boyfriend she had been financially supporting. Despite having such a terrible mother, Nora said she would give up on her exams and work to support her mother. Of course, I was totally against it. "That mother of yours is awful. Just leave her." I remember saying that. I thought she should just leave her mother, live alone, save some money, and go to college, even if she had to take out student loans. But Nora didn't abandon her mother. "She's my only family," she said. I understood how Nora felt, but I just couldn't agree with her. Looking back, I realize how childish I was. I was so dazzled by Nora's efforts to support her family, and felt so inferior because I couldn't do anything, that Nora and I grew apart. And we eventually broke up. As my high school memories faded, the 28-year-old Nora in front of me took off her mask. A scar was revealed under the mask. Under the mask, it's quite something, isn't it? I looked back into Nora's eyes firmly. "Yeah, but this here is even more amazing," I said, pointing to Nora's heart. "You're still as strong as you were in school, if not stronger. You've supported your family, found the courage to escape from violence, and you're still looking forward even though you've been hurt." Nora smiled, looking a little shy at my words. "Thank you, but you're the same, aren't you, Mason?" I didn't understand what Nora meant, so I waited for her next words. "You were cool even back in school, Mason. Remember when you defended me from my friends when they teased me about my mom? And just now, you were the only one to take me away when people were talking about my scar. Who've always been kind, Mason." It was the first time I realized that there was kindness in me. I had thought of myself as an indecisive guy who was neither serious about work nor love. I never even considered that I could be kind to others. I remember when we were dating in school, we used to hold hands a lot. Do you remember? Of course, I remembered. Nora and I used to share our anxieties and little joys and happiness by holding hands. I gently held Nora's hand. Her hand was just as small and white as it had been 10 years ago. I almost cried at the warmth I felt after 10 years, but I held back. I told my current situation to Nora, holding her hand, that I couldn't get serious about love or work, that I was living without any goals. That's why my engagement was called off. I wasn't looking for advice or comfort. I just wanted Nora to listen. I wanted her to know who I am now, even if it meant only exposing my pathetic self. After listening, Nora smiled a little. "You're still careless when it comes to yourself. Let me, your first girlfriend, tell you something good." I nodded, enchanted by Nora's smile. "You, Mason, can work harder and have more fun when you think of others rather than yourself. So how about trying hard for me from now on? I thought I'd like to be together with you again after our reunion, Mason. What do you think?" We had somehow understood each other's feelings since we held hands. "I love you, Nora. I've loved you all these 10 years. Nora blushed at my confession. "Then work hard to be with me. Will you love me seriously? As for work, I want you, Mason, to be devoted to a job you're passionate about. Living a self-indulgent life is a waste. Let's think about our future so that we can live our lives laughing together." I nodded at those words. From now on, my life won't be alone, and just thinking that made me feel somehow optimistic. From that day, Nora and I started dating again. The first thing we did was job hunting. I had been aimlessly doing a job I didn't want to do, and at work, there was my former fiancé. I didn't really care and continued working as I was, but I wanted to make a break from the unmotivated days and life I had been living. Although the salary was a bit lower at my new job, I found a sense of purpose. Since starting dating with Nora, my private life also became fulfilling. Before, on my days off, I used to shut myself in without even opening the curtains, but I began to go out more by accompanying Nora in her hobby of hiking. I even gained a little muscle and became interested in healthy eating. 2 years after we started dating, Nora and I got married, and now we have a child and live together as a family of 3. Nora's facial scars have faded, and she's not wearing a mask now. Her emotional scars have healed, and she's enjoying raising our child. Recently, I received a report from Nora that she's pregnant with our second child. I want to make a lively and fun family, don't I? Looking at Nora's smiling face, I naturally smiled too. She keeps bringing me happiness one after another. But I don't just want to be happy, I want to be someone who can make her happy too. Before I reunited with Nora, I couldn't imagine such happy days. Our reunion changed my life. I want to cherish the happy times with my family without forgetting my gratitude to her. How was today's story? Your channel subscription and hitting the like button will be an encouragement for our creative activities. We look forward to receiving comments from you. See you in the next video. That day, when I got up in the morning, my head was pounding from a hangover. So, I took the morning off from work. It was no big deal, the kind of laid-back company where I worked. The West New York East branch of a listed company that deals in leasing and selling office equipment. Whether it's located in the West or the East, it's confusing, but internally it was sarcastically referred to as the tax avoidance branch. That means, from my point of view, this branch exists solely to account for expenses like labor costs for the company's overall revenue. There were absolutely no expectations for the branch itself to generate revenue. Even if there were, it would be a problem. The 6 employees, including the secretary, were all admittedly lazy, constantly skipping work. When I got to the office, I headed straight to the smoking room. There, the branch manager and 2 senior employees were smoking and chatting. I joined in. Is it true that this branch will be shut down by the next financial statement? Really, you're kidding. As I was surprised, Sam, who was nearing retirement, exhaled cigarette smoke and said, "That rumor's around all the time, right? Well, yeah, but that's not good at all. Those rumors affect our reputation." Everyone else burst into laughter at the manager's words. As if we in this branch had something like a reputation to worry about. Then, the secretary came stomping in, letting the branch manager know there was a call from the headquarters. This secretary, although she doesn't smoke herself, didn't mind other people smoking. It would be one thing if there were young female employees who minded the smell of smoke, but besides the secretary, all the employees were men, and all were smokers. It seems to me that the office could just allow smoking, but apparently the law was strict. The branch manager extinguished his cigarette and went to the office, and we followed him. He was making a troubled face while taking a call from headquarters. After ending the call, he slumped into his chair and, slapping his cheeks with both hands, said, "This is not good. We're in trouble," and turned to us. Apparently, for 1 week starting next week, a female employee from headquarters, who directly reports to the CEO, will be coming to our branch for training. And this female employee is none other than the CEO's daughter. She's young, the CEO's daughter. Maybe 25 or 26. Hearing that, we men were buzz. We looked at each other's faces and grinned, stretching our noses. "Steve, I need you to take care of her." I was tasked by the branch manager to be the guardian of the daughter. Though my heart leaped at the prospect of being around the young CEO's daughter, I was also half worried. Why on earth would she want to come to a place like this for training? To learn how to slack off at work? It just didn't sit right with me. The first day the CEO's daughter arrived. Normally, the employees' faces, which seldom all appeared even after the start time, were lined up 15 minutes early on this day. Everyone was restless and uneasy, spraying deodorant on their suits, swishing mouthwash in the restroom sink, and frantically trying to get rid of the smell of cigarette smoke. "My name's Sarah. I'll be with you for a week." Sarah quickly bowed her head, her chestnut-colored long hair tied up. Her sweet scent of shampoo wafted. She was quite a beauty, with large double-lidded eyes and a youthful allure in the air. I felt the strength of will in the way she stared at me. "I'll be taking care of the training. My name's Steve. I'm the one who is bothering you for training. Please drop the formalities." The daughter seemed more feisty than I thought she would be. As I began explaining to Sarah about the sales area of our branch and the current customers, the branch manager, followed by Sam, and then the other 2 men, as if they'd arranged it, got up and slowly headed to the smoking room along the wall. Even the non-smoking secretary followed after them. I really wanted a cigarette too, but I held back and continued to attend to Sarah. In the afternoon, I drove Sarah around to visit customers in the company car. Sarah, possibly nervous, kept her lips sealed and stared straight ahead. "You don't need to be so tense. These are our regular customers." My words were met with a slight nod from Sarah, still facing forward. "I hope the car doesn't smell like cigarettes." I sniffed around, only to smell Sarah's sweet shampoo, not cigarettes. I glanced at Sarah and saw her kneecaps peeking out from her skirt. I was taken aback. Focus on driving." "Hello there, Brown Office Equipment. Here for your regular inspection." The first place I took Sarah was a longtime client, where we leased multifunctional copier. A familiar lady greeted us, sarcastically saying, "You didn't come last month either. This is not a regular inspection, it's an irregular one." I thought our slacking off had been discovered and quickly glanced at Sarah's expression. She was staring emotionlessly ahead. On the second and third day too, I drove Sarah in the company car, taking her on token sales routes and regular inspections. And on the fourth day, "We're a little early, but how about lunch? There's a great burger restaurant ahead." Sarah answered yes, but looked somewhat dissatisfied. Perhaps this young lady doesn't eat burgers. Sarah and I sat side by side at the counter of the restaurant. While waiting for the burgers, I searched for a conversation topic, feeling the awkward silence. When in doubt, talk about the weather. The weather's good today, isn't it? It's cloudy, though. The atmosphere became even more awkward. Then, can I ask you something? Don't you do any door-to-door sales? Sarah asked me. Waving my hand in front of my face, I said, rarely. It's usually a waste of time. But isn't it great in sales if you get one deal out of 10 attempts? Well, people say that, but it's a hassle, isn't it? It's best to handle work safely without any highs or lows. Sarah reacted to my casual remark, giving me a sharp glare. I looked away, and just then the burgers were served. Nice timing. I picked up my burger and bit into it. However, while we were driving after lunch, Sarah brought up the conversation again. Without any highs or lows means neither good nor bad, right? What does handling work safely mean? Does it mean doing nothing? Her words were sharp. I wondered what had rubbed her the wrong way. Is your job really that fun? That's impressive. Are you satisfied every day? To me, that kind of life is the worst. I was also ticked off by that. I pulled the car over to the side of the road and stopped. You have no business judging my life. After all, you're the CEO's daughter. You must be enjoying a splendid life, I said. After saying that, I realized I had gone too far. But I had been frustrated by having to look after Sarah day after day. Even though I had gotten carried away, I felt like I had let it all out and felt refreshed. Suddenly, Sarah covered her face with both hands and began to cry out loud. Making a woman cry in the car if someone passing by saw it, there's no telling what they would think. I looked around in a panic. Hey, I went too far, I'm sorry. Then an unexpected response came from Sarah. Daughter, the CEO's daughter. Everyone says it, but I'm a human being too. I still don't know anything about the world. Sarah choked on her words at that point. I bought bottles of water at a gas station and returned to where Sarah was sitting in front of the park's fountain. I made you slack off because of me, said Sarah. It's the usual thing, slacking off. Oh, I might get scolded again. When I handed her the water bottle, Sarah bowed her head slightly. I graduated from college 4 years ago and joined my father's company, she said. Sarah had tried job hunting but hadn't received the offers she hoped for. Her father told her if she wanted to work, she could work at his company. My father said that since I'm a woman, any job would do. It's just a seat warmer until I get married. That's what he told me. That was truly old-fashioned thinking. I had only known him from the company's entrance ceremony and a few speeches he gave throughout the year, but I hadn't realized he thought that way. Sure, the company brochure had a picture of the smiling CEO with the words, "We support women in their careers," but still. My title as the CEO's assistant is just a fancy title, but there's a separate secretary, and there's no real work for me. Sarah even went so far as to say that her current situation was akin to being kept in a gilded cage. Then, about 10 days ago, she spoke her mind to her father. Her father, who is the CEO, replied that only a small number of people are doing what they love. Most are doing jobs they don't want to do for the sake of money or living. My father said, "If you think it's a lie, you can look at our tax avoidance branch," he said. That would be our West New York East branch. According to Sarah, the employees at the West New York East branch, including me, are considered to be useless dropouts who are good for nothing but tax avoidance. I couldn't believe what my father said, so I wanted to see for myself. So I came to watch you all work under the guise of training, she said. And sure enough, as her father had said, we were lazy people without a hint of passion or motivation for our work. That night, I was thinking back to what Sarah had confided in me during the day. Some adults often ask silly questions like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" or "What's your dream for the future?" to small children. I had always felt uncomfortable with such questions. I also hated the phrase of dreams come true. What you want to be in the future is not a dream, but a goal. And the goal is not something that just happens. It's something you make happen yourself. I thought about that and reflected on my current self. Dream, goal. I seem to have left both behind a long time ago. I had heard another serious talk from Sarah the day before. Our West New York East branch was really going to be shut down this time. I told everyone while puffing on a cigarette in the smoking room. So, we're getting fired? Well, I don't know about that. I answered my coworker's question. But even if we get transferred somewhere else, we still have to work properly. My manager patted the sighing coworker on his shoulder and said, "Don't say that now." Sarah's last day of training. Headquarters has a project they want to know if we can get a contract for. Several sales attempts were made, but we were totally ignored. So, we'd given up and left it alone. I somehow thought of taking Sarah to that sales there. Yes, definitely. Sarah, with wide, round eyes, nodded vigorously. "Oh, it's you." The client looked at me with a disgusted face. "You only show up when we've forgotten about you, and you ignore our inquiries." "I'm very sorry." I bowed deeply, and Sarah bowed with me. "Who is this?" I apologize for the delay. "My name is Sarah, and I'm in training." Sarah handed over her business card, and the client stared at it intently. "Your name is Sarah." Sarah nodded slightly, her face downcast. "She's the CEO's daughter." The client's attitude changed dramatically at the appearance of the CEO's daughter herself. I opened the materials I brought, and Sarah enthusiastically explained them. Seeing Sarah's fervor, I felt my own heart warm. And at last, we secured a major lease contract with them. That evening, we had Sarah's farewell party, doubling as a celebration for the big contract, at our favorite bar. Everyone ordered their favorite food and drinks, and the alcohol was flowing nicely. But she's really something, the CEO's daughter, closing a deal on her first visit, one we've been trying to get forever. Sarah bashfully looked down. But I was angry at the manager's insincere but harmless words. "That's not correct." I raised my voice involuntarily. Everyone looked at me with question marks above their heads. Well, sure, it might have helped that Sarah was the CEO's daughter, but her presentation was excellent. That's why we got this job. I was passionately defending my stance, and everyone was watching me, still with question marks. I chugged the last of the whiskey and soda left in my mug and gulped. The next day, she came to say thanks for taking care of her for the week. "Steve, I said some rude things to you." "No, it's my fault." I bowed to her as she left, then quickly ran after her. I told her that from now on, I would break away from merely going through the motions at work. I'm going to really live here. I'll be pushing sales hard. She nodded at me vigorously and smiled faintly. "It's been fun this past week. Meeting you, Steve, is something I'll never forget." What a turn of events. Our branch in West New York East, which was not just rumored to be closed but actually slated for it, was to continue. "It's all thanks to my performance, right?" I said, puffing out a cloud of cigarette smoke. Then, Sam slapped me on the head, saying, "You fool." In fact, my aggressive sales tactics had caused the branch's sales to skyrocket. That's when the branch manager chimed in. "You know, the CEO's daughter apparently pleaded with the CEO directly. It's too valuable a branch to close down," she said. A little while later, I was loafing in a coffee shop smoking room, smoking a cigarette between outdoor rounds. "Is it okay?" Loafing again. The one who sat down in front of me was her. I stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray and waved away the lingering smoke. "It's a break. Don't make it sound so bad," I said, and she grinned. Sarah, why are you here? Oh, this is the first time someone has called me by my first name. Is it? She had quit her job, defying her father's wishes, and had moved out to live alone in a studio apartment, working part-time at a convenience store while job hunting. I called after her as she stood to leave, saying it was a coincidence. How about, once you get a job, we can go to a fancy and delicious restaurant to celebrate? At my invitation, she puffed out her cheeks in mock anger. A job celebration, is that all? I froze in surprise, and she smiled warmly. Then she waved goodbye, and I watched her walk away with a brisk step. How did you like it? Subscribing to the channel will encourage production. See you in the next video. My name is Bob. Though I'm still in my 20s, I've let out sighs so deep it felt like life's end might be near. If life had ranks, I'd say I'm currently living the very bottom of it. That's how low I was in life. Everyone has their low moments, right? But can you say that to a miserable man who got cheated on and dumped by his wife in their 5th year of marriage? I love my wife. I've known her since high school, including the time we dated. We've been together for over 10 years. She was beautiful, kind, although she could be sharp with her words at times. But she supported the weak me, and I loved her deeply, feeling truly happy. Every payday, I'd buy flowers for her on my way home. On that day, I planned to buy, though cliché, red roses. That's when I saw her, walking arm in arm with a man I didn't recognize. I was in shock. Why my wife? The direction they were heading led straight to the hotel district. I blanked out, and before I knew it, I was confronting my wife. And guess what she said to me? Don't get in the way of my fun, you useless ATM. The coldness in her voice was piercing. She never really loved me. I was just a money machine to her, always buying her gifts. She saw me as nothing more than a tool. It was a huge shock to me. While I had to do alimony and divorce settlement and all that stuff, but it was too mentally hard on me, so I just abandoned everything. My wife divorced me and went off with a new guy, without any regrets. From there, my life spiraled downward. I stayed home, living an unhealthy life. Got fired from my job for not showing up. Couldn't pay the rent, and my parents, who were my guarantors, got notified. Seeing how broken I was, my parents decided to distract me by getting me a job at a small printing company they knew. And today's my first day. Of course, I'd sigh, right? Well, I knew I couldn't keep hiding away. It was not exactly the company I'd have chosen. And to return to my hometown under such circumstances. But it was my fault for leaving my previous job so recklessly. I had no choice but to accept it. Excuse me, I'm starting work here today. My name's Bob. With a shift in my mindset, I entered the company. I'd been here once before, for an interview, since the CEO is friend of my dad. The first floor is an office and a workshop, while the second deals with data management for the print materials. When I came before, it was a day off and only the CEO was around, but today there are a few office staff, which is comforting. Bob, right, the boss told me about you. Wait, Catherine, I blurted out in surprise. The office lady who came to show me around was a classmate of mine. We were close friends from elementary through middle school. You startled me. It's been ages, Bob. You too. I had no idea you worked here. I was so shocked I forgot my manners for a moment and quickly cleared my throat. Seeing that, Catherine exclaimed, "Oh," and after a brief pause said, "Bob, the CEO is waiting for you. I'll show you in." "Thanks," I replied. While getting back to a professional demeanor, Catherine led me to the CEO's office. Inside, my heart was racing so fast I thought it might jump out of my mouth. After all, Catherine was my first love. As I mentioned earlier, Catherine and I are childhood friends. Rather than seeing each other as the opposite gender, we had been friends for the longest time. So, we spent a lot of time together, but I never confessed my feelings, not wanting to ruin our relationship. You know, being in middle school is such a sensitive time. It's hard to put things into words. I really wanted to confess my feelings on our graduation day, but I didn't have the courage, and in the end, I couldn't do it. Without any change, Catherine and I graduated from high school as friends, and eventually lost touch. In time, I married someone else but later got divorced. It's sad even thinking about it. Let's drop that topic. Anyway, I became single again and happened to meet my first love once more. It would be weird not to be thrilled, right? Catherine had always seemed mature even during our middle school days, but now she had completely blossomed into an attractive woman, especially in her office attire. Trying to clear my mind, I slapped my cheeks with both hands and entered the CEO's office. After greeting him, I found out I was assigned to the sales department. Coincidentally, a salesperson had just left, and since my previous job was also in sales, that became the reason for my placement. The company is a rather small-scale printing business, with 2 in administration, 3 in sales, and 5 handling the actual printing. Catherine had shifted from sales to administrative assistant, but she also oversees sales operations. So, she's basically my boss. However, regardless of our positions, all employees get along well. They even organized a welcome party for me right away. Well, let's hope Bob does a great job for us. Cheers! They hosted the welcome party at a local bar, with a few from sales, administration, and some from the printing department joining in. Some couldn't join because of work or family matters, but I was just happy to have a party in my honor. Embarrassingly, I had become quite introverted and hadn't socialized in a long time, so this was a refreshing change. Oh, Catherine and Bob went to the same middle school. Yes, Bob has always been handy and has a knack for gardening. With alcohol loosening tongues, everyone was pretty chatty, especially Catherine, who seemed to be drinking at quite a pace. I only knew her up until middle school, but she might be quite the drinker. Hey Bob, are you still taking care of Spike? Spike? Yeah, it's the name of a cactus I've been growing for years. Catherine named it. I've always liked houseplants, frequently buying different kinds. It started with cactus, then succulents, banyan trees, and the collection just kept growing. It was surprising that Catherine remembered Spike. Maybe she had a special attachment, or maybe it was the alcohol talking. But it was fun for me, because it gave us a chance to talk about the old days. But then... Darn, she's completely drunk. Catherine had had too much to drink and passed out. And it was just after everyone had left. If she passed out before everyone left, a couple of guys could have helped me get her into a cab. Now, everyone was gone. What should I do? I can hail a cab, but I don't even know where Catherine lives now. Catherine seemed peacefully asleep, but I couldn't just leave her like that. I considered taking her to a hotel, but it's a bit far and I don't have enough money on me right now. My place is just a 5-minute walk from here. It's a good thing the CEO was kind enough to get a place near my house. I told myself this was an emergency situation and decided to carry Catherine home. Honestly, I felt trapped and I was exhausted, so I really wanted to get home. Of course, I laid Catherine down in the bed while I relaxed on the living room couch. I can't sleep when I've had alcohol, so I was just watching late-night TV. Where am I? It must have been about 3 hours later. Catherine woke up in the middle of the night. Well, of course, she'd wake up if she found herself in an unfamiliar place. I gave her a little wave. Morning, you passed out hard, so I brought you to my place. Oh, really? I'm sorry. Catherine still looked sleepy. After drinking that much, it made sense. I asked, want to sleep a bit more, but Catherine started to slowly walk over and, for some reason, sat down next to me on the couch and then leaned on my shoulder. This made me really nervous, but Catherine seemed very relaxed. It reminds me of old times. The old times. Remember I used to visit your place a lot. Oh, you came to see Spike, right? Back then, Catherine lived in an apartment and couldn't do much gardening. She really loved the cactus I was growing. Now, it's just a nostalgic memory. Well, that was half a lie. A lie. Yeah, I just wanted an excuse to visit your house. Hearing this made my heart skip a beat. Drunk and flushed, Catherine looked up at me. I liked you, Bob, but I was scared to tell you. I've regretted not confessing at graduation so many times. I never thought we'd meet again after you moved away. Then, Catherine sat up and turned to face me. When I realized you were next to me, I got so happy and drank too much. Sorry for causing trouble. Catherine. Haha, what am I even saying while drunk? Such things should be said sober. She looked down, seeming embarrassed. If asked whether this was something she should say while drunk, it'd be a hard call. But hearing about her feelings made me really happy. You know, for the record, I liked you too. Huh? But as teenagers, it's hard to be straightforward with feelings, right? I had regrets too, but now things are different. I averted my gaze. Both of us have grown up and changed. It's hard to like someone just because they were there for you like that old days. And we haven't seen each other for almost 10 years. Values change, and the dynamics of our conversations might be different now. And I still have the scars from being dumped by my ex-wife. It's hard for me to be open to a new relationship right now. I was actually dumped hard by my ex. To be honest, I'm finding it hard to trust women, but I want to trust you, Catherine. I don't doubt your feelings, and I don't deny them. I just need some time. We've been apart for so long, and we've both changed. When I can truly believe in my feelings for you, maybe then I can tell you the words I couldn't at graduation. That was the most I could say for now. I like Catherine, and I want to be by her side. But I'm sure the hole in my heart will get in the way of my feelings for Catherine. I still can't respond right away. It's pathetic, really. While I was thinking this, I'm happy. Catherine started to cry. I knew about it, Bob. I heard the CEO talking about how you were married. I know you're not the type to move on to another woman so soon. I'll wait, no matter how long, forever and ever. Because I've been waiting all this time. Catherine said that and cried like a child. She has been waiting for me all this time. With that thought, I teared up and quickly wiped away a tear. The next day, after all that crying, Catherine woke up past noon. Well, I slept in till around the same time. Good morning. Yeah, good morning. Want something to eat? Yeah. I'm hungry. Chatting like a married couple, Catherine started exploring my room, which she probably hadn't seen before. But since I just moved after my divorce, there's nothing particularly interesting. However, Catherine immediately exclaimed, "Oh, it's Spike." She noticed Spike, the cactus, by the window, and her eyes lit up. I've had Spike longer than I was with my ex-wife. To me, Spike is like family, but Catherine looked at him and tilted her head, saying, "Was he this big? Cactus grow slowly, but if you've been raising one for years, it does get bigger." Especially since Catherine hadn't seen Spike in over 10 years. It's no wonder she finds him bigger now. Want a touch? Really? Won't it hurt? It's fine, It won't hurt." With that, Catherine gently touched Spike. I bet Spike never expected to see Catherine again. Even though she jokingly half-lied about it, Catherine really did care for Spike. As a result, "Bob, I'm here again." Somehow, she started visiting my room twice a week to see Spike. Not just Spike, she's also curious about my other succulents and banyan trees. I was truly surprised. She's so different from the assertive woman at work. Because she barges in like that, I've lost my peace. Lately, Catherine's almost living with me. If this goes on for another 6 months, I'll have to make up my mind. "Hey, Catherine." What? "I want you to marry me." With that, Catherine smiled happily, but that's not how. What? I totally didn't see that rejection coming. "You promised to say the words you couldn't at our graduation, remember? Did you think back then that you wanted to marry me?" Catherine said with a grin. She really knows everything. I really can't compete with her. I turned to face Catherine again. And then, I finally told her the words I couldn't say back then. "I love you." How was that? Subscribing to the channel really motivates us to create more content. See you in the next video. "How about living at my place?" She said it as casually as if inviting me to lunch. I was at a loss for words. After all, Susan, was my team leader at my previous company, and then she became my employer. This was about a year ago. The beginning of the story goes back another 3 months. That morning, as soon as I arrived at the office, the department head summoned me in an irritated voice. "Hey Mike, what on earth is this?" As I walked over to his desk, he threw a catalog of new cell phone covers on the desk. Looking at it, there was a cell phone cover design identical to the one I had previously completed. "You said you wanted to redo it, even though you got the go-ahead last time, didn't you?" "Yes, that's because I came up with a better idea, and so, I discussed it with the leader and..." "Did you really sell your design elsewhere?" "No way, that's impossible." But here it was, my rejected design being manufactured by another company. I had no idea why. I looked around for my team leader, Susan, for help. Then I remembered that she was on a business trip out of town until tomorrow. "You're fired, effective today." Termination of contract means I'm fired. I was falsely accused and suddenly kicked out of the company. I work as a product designer. Product designers design all sorts of products, from household goods and daily necessities to industrial machinery. Some manufacturers have in-house designers, but others outsource the design to design firms. I used to be responsible for product planning at a manufacturer, placing design orders. But eventually, I became interested in design itself, quit my job, and studied design at a vocational school before being hired as a contract employee at the design agency. And then, I got fired. As I was packing up my belongings at my desk, I was approached in whispered voices from both sides. They were Ken and John, who became contract employees around the same time as me, but in different teams. Both were concerned about me. As I explained the situation, Ken looked at my face and asked, "Did you really sell it?" John said, "No way, it must be some mistake." "Well, it's fine. I wanted to work on something bigger anyway." I pretended to have a lot of leeway at best, and I said things that were mindless. On my way home, I stopped at a nearby convenience store and bought some beer and snacks. I was drinking at home out of frustration. I started drinking while the sun was still up and was completely drunk by evening. "Mike, you're home early, and why are you already drunk?" My live-in girlfriend, Emily, had returned from work. When I told her that I had been fired, she heaved a big sigh and said, "I told you over and over to give up on being a designer." I met Emily at the manufacturer I used to work for. She still works there. She strongly opposed my career change, insisting that it would be more stable if I stay with a large company. When I did change jobs, there was a gap between Emily and me. Shut up. I wanted to be a designer. What's wrong with that? In the end, was I wrong or was I mistaken? I drank myself into oblivion, my head spinning, and I ended up passing out. The next day, I slept until just before noon. On the living room floor, Emily had already gone to work. As I was drinking a glass of water just after waking up, the doorbell rang. When I opened the front door, there stood my team leader, Susan. "Oh, just woke up. You look awful." "Why? I'm coming in." She didn't wait for my response and just barged into the room. "A bit of drowning your sorrows last night." She said this after seeing the large number of empty beer cans left on the table. "Well, something like that. I'm going on a binge eat right now. It's lunchtime anyway. Come on, I've bought loads down at the town square. Let's eat together." Honestly, I had no appetite, but I had no choice but to say yes. More importantly, why? I quit the company too. "What, why? Is that all you can say? Why?" She laughed as she said this, looking at my surprised face. She had finished a business trip and had gone to the office that morning, where she was informed about the termination of my contract and the reason for it. And she had gotten into an argument with the boss. She insisted that there's no way I would sell my designs to another company, but the boss was adamant that my designs had actually been productized. In the end, he rebuked her as team leader, saying, "You've been negligent in your supervision." He said I was negligent, so I said, "Then I'll take responsibility," and I quit. She said this robustly while biting into a fried chicken drumstick. "So now, because of me, you too, have been at odds with that hard-headed man for a while now." She then looked at me seriously, adjusting her posture. "You just left your job yesterday, and you haven't decided on your next job yet, right?" "Yes, I have no prospects." "Then, work with me." "Work with you?" I couldn't grasp the meaning, so she explained. She had decided to take this opportunity to start her own design firm. She had been considering going independent and had saved up for it. The salary might be lower at first, but only for a little while. Just bear with it. In other words, she wanted me to be the first employee of her new design company. "Sure, if you want me," she thanked me and offered both her greasy hands for a handshake. I shook her hands, though somewhat bewildered. Her hands were sticky from the fried chicken. Honestly, I was puzzled as to why she had invited me to be her first employee. Until then, she had been giving various orders to other team members, juggling multiple projects, but rarely giving me advice, assigning me only one project at a time. I had always thought that I was neither expected nor evaluated. Now, even though she said she was starting a company, her home apartment served as both an office and a residence for the time being. It's all about cutting costs. Speaking of cutting costs, instead of relying on a lawyer for the company's registration, Susan did it herself by going to the local legal office. Of course, she was also running around for sales activities alongside that. Her past achievements paid off, and we were inundated with jobs for designs. And I worked selflessly on those jobs. Sometimes work ended late at night, and I often stayed over at her home, which also served as the office. The company's name is S&T Design. When I showed the business card of the newly formed company to Emily a few days after returning home, she said it with a bored look. "What's her name again?" "Susan." "Susan, so the S is for Susan, and the T is because you're Tom, so it's Susan and Tom then." Emily flicked the business card she was holding onto the table and glared at me. "What is it?" "Nothing. Just thought you two must be getting along well." Emily was clearly jealous. She misunderstood the relationship between her and me in a strange way. We were only work partners, her and me. Since then, there was not just a gap between Emily and me, but a deep rift. Sometime later, on a Saturday, I had stayed over for 2 days and was catching up on the backlog of work. It was almost done. "How about taking off early today when you reach a good stopping point?" Susan seemed to care about me, struggling just a bit more, and wanted me to go home early. "I'll manage to finish by tonight." "Come on, you're overworking. Go home now. This an order from your boss." I was patted on the shoulder by her and decided to wrap up work. I was about to call Emily, who was supposed to be home, but stopped. I wanted to surprise her by coming home unexpectedly. I stopped by Emily's favorite bakery and bought a surprise cake as a gift. I opened the front door without making a noise. There were men's shoes I didn't recognize. I thought we had a visitor. I could hear the sound of a comedy show from the TV in the living room. But there was no sign of the visitor, Emily, in the living room. "Where's Emily?" I opened the door to the bedroom. Emily was asleep on the bed, her head resting on the chest of a man I didn't know. "Emily." "No, what? Why are you back?" The man hurriedly got dressed, said something cheeky like "see you later" to Emily, and hurried out. Emily sat on the bed with a sullen face, wrapped in a blanket. I threw the cake in its box at Emily, crammed my belongings into my backpack, and yelled, "I'll come back for the rest of my stuff later. I'll let you know before I come." I stormed out. I wandered the streets with nowhere to go. Of course, I couldn't possibly go back and stay at work. I thought about calling Ken or John, my fellow contract workers, and telling them what had happened. What am I going to say? That I broke up with the girl I was living with and moved out? Certainly, then no doubt they would interrogate me, digging into every detail. Even I'm hurt by all of this. Drinking some booze and talking, I'm sure I'll end up crying. Eventually, I decided to stay in a comic book cafe I happened to notice until Monday morning. "Oh, were you off camping for the weekend?" she said on Monday, noticing my backpack as I was heading to work. "No, I've moved out of the house." "Did you have a fight with her?" "We broke up." She looked shocked for a moment, then said, "I don't know the details," but as a preface, and then casually said, "Why don't you live at my place?" As I hesitated, she added, "I don't mind at all. After all, you've stayed over plenty of times before." But that was for work. Never mind that. I found this old business card while I was sorting through some things. "Look at this." The card she handed me was from when I was in charge of product planning at a manufacturer. "Why do you have this? We exchanged cards a long time ago. You don't remember, do you? I was at the design company before the one I'm at now." I had no memory of it, but she had been in charge of the design when my company had hired her. Usually, we would have multiple meetings to finalize the design, including the concept and functionality of the product. I made a few revisions to the rough sketch, and the design was pretty much settled, but you, a rookie, came to observe the meeting. I was trying to recall the time while listening to her story. "When we exchanged business cards, you were so stiff, barely looking at anyone's face, and your hands were shaking. I wondered if you were going to be okay as a newbie," she said with a chuckle. I could only respond with an embarrassed smile, feeling both pathetic and ashamed. At the end of the meeting, someone said, "Mike, tell us your thoughts. You were so nervous that your voice was cracking, and you said something completely off the wall, but it was something none of us would have ever thought of." I thought, what's with this amateur? What kind of ridiculous thing had I said? I couldn't remember. I thought that, but at the same time, I wondered where such an idea had come from. Which I couldn't do, I thought. I was frustrated. If this guy gets involved in design, won't it be something incredible? I can't lose to him. With that, she stood up from her chair. I looked down, embarrassed. "The point is, we've known each other for a long time, so it's fine. Don't worry about it, just live here. The punchline of the story being that I should live here was confusing, but it somehow made me feel inclined to agree. Oh, but you'll have to see something awful every morning. What is it exactly? My face without makeup. I stayed at her house as a temporary place to live until I could find a new home. The layout had a living and dining room used as an office in her bedroom, plus one more room. She suggested I use that room, but I declined, opting to lay out a sleeping bag on the living room floor when I slept. We sometimes ate together, and sometimes separately, but since neither of us cooked much, we ordered delivery or ate food we bought outside. Thus began our strange cohabitation, and about half a month had passed. We were working in the room when her cell phone rang. "Oh, Ken, long time no see." It seemed to be from Ken, my contract colleague. She listened to Ken's story, nodding, and said, "There's always next year. Don't be discouraged." He's here, living at my place. No, it's different. My home is currently a home office and company housing. She said this and hung up, laughing. Ken, as in that Ken. Yes, he says hi. From the conversation, it seemed that Ken knew I was living here. Ken didn't become a full-time employee, just another one-year contract. We had a one-year contract, but one of us had been offered the possibility of being promoted to a full-time position after the term. In my mind, the ranking of excellence was Mike, Ken, and then John. Defying her expectations, this time John got the full-time position. Wait, does that mean in Susan's view, I was the best? Hey, when you were the leader, you hardly gave me any advice and only assigned me one task at a time, right? What's wrong with that? Does that mean you didn't think much of me? Don't be foolish, it's the opposite, actually. The reason she didn't advise me was that there was no need to. She didn't make me multitask because she wanted me to focus on the cases she deemed important or difficult. Hearing that, I felt so happy that I wanted to jump for joy. After that, work went smoothly. Though I was planning to find a new place to live right away, the end of the year was approaching, and I was still living in her apartment. "It's cold today," she said, stamping her feet in front of the space heater after returning from outside. "They say there's a big cold wave coming." Well, I can't be defeated by a cold wave. There's a lot of work ahead. She had secured a new business opportunity upon visiting a client. However, it was a competition with another company. If we won the competition, it would lead to continued orders. The schedule is tight. Only 1 week until the competition, and on top of that, that company will also participate. That company, the company that gave us the opportunity to start our S&T design. She also invited me over, saying she'd gotten interesting news. The designs I had rejected were sold to another design firm by our contract colleague John. In his eagerness to be promoted, he tried to sabotage me to reduce competition. The company that bought the design from John also had other stolen designs and was reported by the client. And thus, John's actions came to light. John was fired just a few months after becoming a full-time employee, and another contract employee, again, became full-time. For the next week, I worked day and night on the design for the competition. The night before the competition, I finally finished the design drawing. I was so relieved that I fell asleep with my head on my desk. "Hey, you'll catch a cold like that." She had been resting in her bedroom and came to check on the workspace, where the lights were still on. Though I fell asleep, "The design is ready, it's right here." She said, "I know," and put her arm under mine to help me stand. "I'm fine, sleeping back. Come here, my bed's warmer." We won the competition. And the company grew. We established a new office and hired about 5 employees. As for me, I'm still living in her house. Not just as a work partner, but as a life partner. "Ryan, could you come here for a moment?" A sharp female voice echoed, and I, holding back a sigh, walked over to my boss's desk. "My name is Ryan. I'm a rookie, having joined the company right after college graduation. I work in sales. I really wanted to be in the IT department where I could work in silence, but my request didn't go through, so here I am. The one who called me just now was my boss, Sarah. Though she's my boss, she's only 23, a year younger than me. But she's been with the company since she was 18, a true veteran. She's competent and well respected in the company, handling everything with ease. She not only does her job impeccably but covers for her subordinates' mistakes as well. She's such an ideal boss that she's got a fan club in the company. However, for some reason, she's particularly tough on me, and I frequently find myself being lectured. It's true I'm new, but I also tend to make a lot of mistakes. I was especially bad at speaking, and I even misspoke when I was helping the sales visits. I don't have many friends or a girlfriend in my personal life. It's not like I can become a smooth talker overnight. If I had to make an excuse, it's not just my poor conversational skills that's the reason I don't have a girlfriend. I have a lot of sisters. One older and two younger. Moreover, with my dad always out of town for work, it's all women at home besides me. With that setup, I kinda wanted some distance from the female species, and as a result, my age equals my years without a girlfriend. Well, I didn't get along with female friends either, so I guess I really am prone to misspeaking. Probably that's the reason for being called out today. Ryan, what was with your comments in the meeting earlier? I expected your input, but you just stayed silent. It's problematic. Oops, my mistake. It seems the issue wasn't what I said, but rather what I didn't say. I did try my best to think of a response, but I was so focused on thinking that I ended up not saying anything. I only muttered a few words during the meeting, so her criticism might be justified. Sarah is petite and shorter than me. Her medium-length hair swayed as she looked up at me. Sarah is my boss, but she speaks politely to everyone, given her young age. But her voice was stern. I'm sorry. Meetings are also for sharing opinions, you know. Do you get that? Without me, it seems like these meetings can't happen. You're such a klutz, Ryan. When you embarrass yourself, it reflects poorly on the company. I'll make sure to train you properly. After that, Sarah started giving me more tasks. Sure, they were educational. But it was mostly easy stuff like carrying things and getting coffee. More like, I became Sarah's personal assistant. I definitely felt used. To others, it might seem enviable to be working so closely with the company's star, but I didn't feel that way at all. I mean, every day, as I assisted her on sales calls, I'd hear things like, "Sales isn't for you yet, klutz." Then, one day, Sarah took me to greet a client located a bit far away. The greeting was quick, and since the company was quite a distance away, we were supposed to head straight home afterward. However, the weather forecast was way off, and we ended up getting drenched in a sudden downpour. We were both soaked, so we rushed into a nearby convenience store. But due to the sudden rain, most of the umbrellas were sold out, and we only got one. The rain didn't seem to be letting up, so, feeling it was the right thing to do, I offered my umbrella to Sarah. "Here, use this." "But, if I take it, won't you get wet, Ryan? My place is just around the corner, so even if I get a bit wet, it's no big deal." This was true. My house is only a 10-minute walk away. I'd already given my mom a heads up, so she's probably already got a hot bath waiting for me, so getting a bit wet on the way home wasn't an issue. But Sarah seemed reluctant to accept my favor. "Ryan, it's cheeky of you to look out for your boss like that. In times like these, it's the junior who should be the one getting spoiled," she pouted. "But Sarah, your clothes, they're kinda see-through. Taking the subway looking like that might not be a great idea. I wasn't trying to tease her. I just spoke what was immediately apparent. Apparently, it was the wrong thing to say. Sarah quickly covered herself with a flustered, "Oh my goodness. I mean, everything's visible." I inadvertently blurted out. "Ire, stop it. You don't say things like that. This is why you're such a klutz." Sarah seemed really embarrassed. This was tricky. She didn't seem to take the umbrella, but I couldn't let her leave like this either. I was wondering what to do when, achoo, Sarah sneezed. She was dressed rather lightly and looked cold. I wanted to head home too, so on a whim, I asked, "Want to come to my place?" Her face turned a deeper shade of red. Could she be running a fever? "What, your place, Brian? You might catch a cold in this weather, and there aren't any cabs around here. Might be better to head to my place." As I tilted my head pondering, Sarah became fidgety. She kept glancing at me and said, her cheeks flushed, "I mean, sure, but why is she acting so nervous? Is she cold? Or maybe worried about a change of clothes?" True, it wouldn't be appropriate to lend her mine. I might have overlooked that. "Don't worry, I have sisters at home. They can lend you something." "You have sisters?" "Yay, one's in elementary school and the other's in middle school. Oh, and I have an older sister too." With this, Sarah seemed to finally understand. But suddenly she seemed flustered. "I mean, just because you're Ryan doesn't mean you don't have any ulterior motives, right?" "Ulterior motives? Never mind. Please just take me to your place." I still didn't get what she was getting at, but if she was okay with it, I decided to head home with Sarah. Since we had just the one umbrella, we had to share. Luckily, Sarah's petite size made it easier. Upon reaching home, my younger sisters greeted us. Usually, only the youngest is around, but with a guest over, my middle school-aged sister was present too. My older sister seemed to be still at work. I had already informed Mom, so she came out shortly after. "Sorry for the noisy household. I'm the one who should apologize for barging in like this." "Oh, don't mention it. Such a sweet girl you are. Come on in." As Sarah was politely greeting everyone, my younger sisters started making a ruckus. It's hardly ever quiet in this house, I swear. "Big bro brought a friend." "Nope, she's his girlfriend." "Both wrong. Come on, show her to the bathroom." The sisters got it all mixed up, so I asked them to guide Sarah, and I escaped to the living room. Mom teased me while preparing dinner. "She's a well-mannered and cute girl. It's rare for you to bring someone home, isn't it? Is there no place for me to hide?" I wished I could just lock myself in my room, but we have a guest, so I couldn't. "She's not what you think. She's my boss, okay? Sure. I made such exchanges while helping out. Then, when Sarah came out of the bathroom, I was genuinely shocked. Not just because she had no makeup on, but her hair was long. She usually has it at her length, a kind of medium length. As I stared in astonishment, Sarah laughed. "I usually tie it up to make it look shorter. I like it long, but it gets in the way at work." When she let down her hair and smiled with a faint post-bath redness in her cheeks, even I felt my heart race. I grew up with a family of women, but right now, the prettiest one in this house has to be Sarah. She seemed to have borrowed clothes from my sisters, and as she was about to leave, Mom insisted, somewhat forcefully, that she stays for dinner. My elder sister came home, making dinner more lively than usual. Sarah has a knack for figuring out quickly what pleases people. She entertained my third-grade sister after dinner, which delighted her. Mom and my other sister, usually stuck with this duty, seemed relieved tonight. "Okay, let's play, kiddo." At home, Sarah showed a younger, innocent side I never saw at work. It reminded me that, of course, she's younger than me. From this, I could gather how much pressure she must be under at work. When my sister became sleepy, Sarah tried to take her leave. But don't underestimate the desires of elementary school children. Don't go. What? No, I want to sleep with you, my sister pleaded. Mom tried to reprimand her. Now, don't bother our guest, but she was relentless. I sneaked a glance at the calendar. Luckily, tomorrow's a day off. I thought I'd drive Sarah home after my sister slept, but somehow she ended up staying overnight. Even I was taken aback by this unexpected development, but life doesn't go like a romantic comic. Sarah was to share a room with my sister, who was over the moon. I wasn't expecting anything. Well, not really expecting, you know. Every guy wishes to be popular at least once in his life, right? Anyway, nothing happened. The next morning, I was set to drive Sarah. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. She had her makeup on, looking every bit the Sarah I see at work, but she seemed to struggle switching back to work mode. We're not at work, so you don't have to be so formal. It's fine. Then, same to you. Oh, I got it. To be honest, when I was talking to my sister yesterday, I dropped all the formalities, and I ended up doing the same. It felt a bit awkward. Your sister's pretty cute. She's always up to mischief. I've got my hands full with her. It'd be great if you could come and hang out again. My sister would love that. It was meant to be casual chit-chat. My sister really tucked to Sarah, and I'd appreciate her coming around. But there was no reply. It was about time we reached the station. How about you, Ryan? Huh? Suddenly Sarah spoke up, catching me off guard. When I parked nearby and looked at Sarah's face was flushed and she was pouting. Ryan, don't you want me to come? It's not that I don't want you to. So, you'd be happy? Well, not necessarily happy. You're supposed to say you're happy, even if it's a lie. Sarah pouted even more. She looked like a cute little animal. I honestly felt Sarah had a different side to her outside of work, and I was curious about that side. It's just mere curiosity. I felt like teasing her a bit. If you're that honest, I'd be happy to. I said that, but it seemed like it was a gaffe again. You really do talk gibberish a lot, Ryan. That's why I can't leave you. Even so, Sarah said with a cheerful laugh. I'm going to keep a close eye on you in return for your sister. Could you give me a break and be nice? If only the mistakes were fewer, huh? Sarah grinned as she got out of the car. See you at work, then. Take care. Oh right, you look pretty with your hair down. It suits you. I'm not particularly fond of long hair, but I thought it would be a nice change for her. But the usually cheerful Sarah flushed red and said, well, I do that because my hair gets in the way when it's long. Then she ran off. I still don't understand women. I've been interacting with Sarah the same way I do with my sisters, but it seems I tend to misspeak around her. I sighed, thinking she might be mad at me next time we meet at work, and watched her receding figure. After that, Sarah started coming to work with her hair down, causing a stir in the office. I even got glares from the Sarah fan club because she started talking casually with me. But it's not my fault. At first, she spoke formally, but as she came to my house more to meet my sisters rather than me, she spoke more casually, and it eventually carried over to work. As she is my boss, it doesn't bother me. In fact, I find it easier to talk with her this way. For my sisters, I've seen a lot of unexpected sides of Sarah. She's surprisingly competitive, responsible, yet slightly childlike. She often plays games with my sisters and, despite losing, insists one more time. However, she's not very good at gaming, and in the end, I usually let her win on purpose. But she figured that out and now insists, don't go easy on me. That's an order from your boss, an order. I found that endearing. I feel like we've gotten a bit closer, and it's not an unpleasant feeling. It's a comfort different from being with my sisters. I don't know what to call this feeling, but I should probably keep my mouth shut for a while to avoid any more foot and mouth moments. Unaware of my feelings, Sarah calls out to me today, too. Come on, Brian, let's go. Is it just me overthinking, or not? I rescued a woman being bothered by a guy, and she said that to me. Confused by her words, I looked at her, and she came closer with an alluring upward glance. Having never been popular and leading an ordinary life, my heart raced. And then, she slowly revealed that to me. My name's Brian. Just a regular 28-year-old office worker. I'm not on the fast track to climb the ladder in my job. I'm in a kind of general duties role, but I've never felt unhappy about that. I earn a decent wage and want to continue this peaceful life. I basically don't turn down tasks given to me. During work hours, be it errands or supporting colleagues, I'm up for anything. Thanks to this, I have a great relationship with my coworkers. Though I am often asked to do errands, I take them willingly, and I sometimes get help in return. It's a genuinely good workplace. But now, a major issue has arisen. It was a single comment from the boss. Brian, ever thought of going on a blind date? Our company is small, and the boss, who worked his way up, values communication with us employees. I often chat with him and sometimes even seek work advice. This same boss, grinning, proposed a blind date to me. Well, I've never thought about that. Considering your age, it's about time to think about marriage, right? I have a good match for you. I never imagined a blind date offer coming my way. There are plenty of employees in their 20s and 30s. Why me, who is just doing his ordinary tasks? Seeing the question on my face, the boss shared more information about this date. Turns out, she's the daughter of one of our clients. Wait, then more reason for someone like me to be mismatched. Learning she's a CEO's daughter, I decided to decline immediately. No, she specifically requested you. I asked how she got to know about you, but she only told me that she wants to meet and discuss it with you directly. I'd never spoken to or seen this young lady. From what the boss said, her name's Lily, 24. She's working in accounting at her father's company. I saw her photo, a slender figure, striking large eyes, a real beauty. Graduated from a prestigious university, smart and beautiful. Even more puzzled why she chose me. She wanted to talk to you, rather than just a blind date. Why not meet her? If you don't click, you can decline, and if you're not interested at all, you can refuse the meetup. I'll smooth things out, so don't feel pressured to say yes this time even. Our boss treats the employees like family. Hearing him say I could decline, I was sure he'd handle it gracefully. But her photo felt like somebody I knew. Plus, I was curious about why she'd want to talk to me. Seeing me ponder, the boss smiled warmly. I've known Mr. White, her father, for ages. Known Lily since she was a kid. She may be a CEO's daughter, but she's very down to earth and sweet. A genuinely lovely young lady. I already feel nervous a little, but if he says so, she sure is wonderful. I began to want to see her and have a talk with her. I found myself agreeing to the blind date. Though I'd agreed, as the day was approaching, I became more anxious. And on the day, with heavy steps, I headed to the upscale restaurant for our meeting. What should I talk about today? Can I just ask why she chose me right off the bat? No, that might be rude. As I was walking lost in thought, I suddenly heard a distressed voice of a woman. Stop it, I told you no. When I peeked around the corner into the alley ahead, there was a woman in a beautiful dress wearing a face mask being harassed by a thug. It seemed like he had been persistently bothering her. Although a part of me was scared, I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. I stepped between the thug and the woman and said, "Can't you see her making her uncomfortable? Back off." The thug glanced at me and made a loud, exaggerated tisk. "Mind your own business." Apparently he didn't like my intervention and got provoked. He hurled a plastic bottle at me in a fit of rage. I managed to dodge it, feeling that this situation might escalate to something worse. "I won't have him hurt her." "Isn't this an assault? I'll call the cops." At the mention of the police, he seemed to get cold feet and hastily retreated. As I was about to speak with the woman, she talked to me first, her voice filled with concern. "Are you okay? Didn't you get hit by that thing?" She seemed genuinely worried. "No, I'm fine. Are you okay?" "I'm good. Thank you so much for helping. You're indeed like a real-life hero." I couldn't help but blush at her words. But her "indeed like a real-life hero" comment made me wonder what she meant, and just as I was about to ask, she told me something I didn't expect. "Is it just me overthinking, or not? It feels like a destiny." I was taken aback. Meeting someone for the first time and thinking it's destiny seemed far-fetched. But as she looked up at me, implying it was our fate, she was so beautiful and made my heart race. "Look at this." As she said that, she showed me a cherished handkerchief. "Oh, isn't that?" I recognized it immediately. It was a handkerchief I used to own. "Do you remember this? You gave me when I was in middle school. When I was still a teenager, I used to spend my summer vacations in a rural town where my grandparents lived. There used to be a younger girl living nearby, and I spent those summers hanging out with her. However, both of my grandparents passed away one after the other. Their old house was hard for my parents to maintain since they lived far away. It ended up being torn down after their passings. That meant no more summer trips to the town. The girl I used to hang out with was a bit chubby and was bullied for it in school. I sometimes comforted her and listened to her about it, so she might have felt sad to know that I was going to stop visiting. On our last day together, I gave my crying friend that handkerchief. "Don't cry, we'll meet again someday. Let's promise to greet each other with a smile then." She gave me one last smile while she was wiping her tears with that handkerchief. If I remember it correctly, her name was Lily. I only saw Lily during those summer breaks, and the last time I saw her was during my high school years. It had been so long that I didn't instantly recognize her when I heard her name. Moreover, she used to be chubby, but not anymore. She'd transformed into a stunning woman. "Is that you, Lily? You've grown into a pretty woman. I didn't recognize you. I'm glad that you remember me. Back in those days, you always stood up against the bullies like a cool hero for me. You were treating me with kindness and even offered me the handkerchief when I was crying. You were my first love. Ever since then, I've been hoping to see you again and thank you. I've worked hard to better myself, even went on a diet." She said it with a chuckle, and she looked so beautiful. Perhaps she had gained confidence through her efforts and personal development. "How did you find out about me? You could have just said hi to me then. I work in my dad's company in the accounting department. I saw you when you visited our company. You looked just like the old days, so I recognized you right away. When I asked the name of the person to other employees, it was indeed you." She used to live in the countryside back in the day, but after her father's business took off, they moved to downtown New York City as a family. I might have met her parents once a long time ago, but I honestly don't remember. And to think that her dad is now a major business partner. It really took me by surprise. Even after we got to the restaurant, Lily and I reminisced about old times. It felt more like a reunion and a blind date. We had a great time. Lily's mother also came to the restaurant to greet with me. Apparently, Lily's mom was the one who set this up. She told me that she recognized you at the company right away. She wanted to talk to you, but couldn't approach you directly, so she asked me to arrange this event. Her mother seemed to find her daughter's feelings adorable and was smiling the whole time. Personally, I think it's a higher hurdle to chat through a matchmaking event than just approaching directly, but thanks to that, we got to talk, so I'm grateful, one way or another. From that day on, Lily and I started messaging each other and even went out to eat together. However, a month after the initial event, Lily's dad, the CEO Mr. White, stormed into my company. "Who is Brian?" Mr. White, who suddenly appeared, seemed a bit angry. "That should be me." As I stepped forward, Mr. White was looking at me from head to toe. "I have plans for my daughter to marry someone competent enough to take over the company." It seems he had recently found out about the blind date. It could be that Lily and her mom had anticipated this reaction from Mr. White and kept silent. Honestly, I wish they had discussed this within their family beforehand. We had this blind date, but Lily and I had met a long time ago. We were just talking about the old days. Even after hearing this, Mr. White still seemed upset. "I heard that you guys see each other after the event, and even went to grab dinner sometimes. I've heard that you described yourself as a jack of all trades. Such a person is not suitable for my Lily. Break it off." It seems Mr. White doesn't listen when he gets riled up. A protective father, I suppose. But as I was pondering how to handle the situation, one of my colleagues spoke up. "If it's about competence, I think Brian is the right man," in a rather humble way. That sparked reactions from other colleagues. "Brian's quick and can do anything. He's really bright. He's on a whole different level in terms of quality and speed compared to the rest of us." Hearing this, Mr. White looked puzzled. "Huh, I was told you were just a regular employee." Responding to that remark was my direct boss, the manager. "Brian only describes himself that way, but we don't see him like that. After swiftly completing his tasks, he supports others. He's not just competent, he's exceptional, and everyone relies on him." Hearing this, Mr. White seemed to calm down. Apparently, after hearing that I referred to myself in such a manner, he jumped to conclusions about my suitability for his daughter. He said he lost his cool when he heard about the unfamiliar man his daughter was meeting. I carefully explained to him why Lily wanted to meet me. She probably felt too shy to tell her dad about her first crush. Later, he listened to my colleagues talk about my daily performance and personality, and eventually came around to understanding why we had the initial blind date. This doesn't mean I'm giving my permission for marriage. Look, we're not dating or anything, and we haven't thought about marriage. Lily is beautiful, and it's always calming to talk to her. Talking about favorite foods and movies can be enjoyable, so I'm thinking I'd like to formally ask her out soon. But courting a daughter who has such an overprotective dad seems like a tough challenge. Yet, through his every word and action, I can tell he deeply cares for Lily, and that makes the father seem endearing in a way. Since then, I kept building a good friendship with Lily. Inspired by how dedicated Lily is to her work, I've become even more committed to my job. At the time of my promotion, I finally asked her to be my girlfriend. Lily's response was, "Finally, you asked me that." It seems I made her wait quite a while. After dating for about a year, tomorrow I'll be meeting Lily's parents to discuss our marriage plans. From what Lily tells me, her mom seems quite welcoming, but her dad seems a bit more challenging. The night before, I'm super nervous, and Lily chuckles seeing me like that. "Considering you can stand up to strangers and bullies, it's funny you're this nervous about meeting my parents." No, facing bullies is easier. Your dad's quite tough and full of energy. I'm sorry for being so weak." Hearing that, Lily gently shook her head. "I love you for your bravery, and I also love you when you're this nervous about seeing my parents and talking about our marriage to them." I could feel my ears turning bright red. Feeling embarrassed, I looked at Lily. She was wearing a sweet smile. Thanks to the affection she had for me all these years, we got to reconnect. I truly believe I've met someone who is in my destiny. Seeing her smile, I'm determined to get her parents' permissions for our marriage. I'm going to make Lily truly happy.